Hello everybody and welcome back. We are ready for our next series of the night. This is the final round of the round of 32 here in WCS America Group H. Today we have all the races represented. We already saw the Protoss vs Zerg. Max had looked very good in his first series of the day, but he's not there yet. As right now it's time to look at two awesome North American players.
That's right. We have puCK playing against SeleCT, our Terran versus Protoss for tonight. And you know, we get some great matchup variety. We could either have a PvP in our winners match, another TVP, and maybe odds for a chance for one TVZ.
You know, I'm a big fan of PvP, but I just went through 12 or 13 of them by VOD. So normally I'm always cheering for a PvP. Today I wouldn't really mind because I think I've seen it all yesterday in the GSL. Of course, we're not going to spoil the results of the GSL for you. Don't worry. But yesterday there was a group with a lot of Protoss players, and earlier tonight I went through all of the games, and I definitely recommend a couple of them because it was a crazy night.
Yeah, a lot of those games are crazy, and now it's time to see which one of these crazy North American players can move on to the winners match to face Mox said. We are already loaded in to Heavy Rain for our first game of this best of three. And Roddy, if you want to introduce our Protoss player, the honor is yours.
On the top side of Heavy Rain, we have our Red Protoss representing Team IVD Gaming. He was a former root player, but right now he's rocking that IVD tag proudly. He is puCK.
And his opponent in the bottom position, spawning as the blue Terran player from Team Dignitas, it is SeleCT.
And what kind of SeleCT are we going to see today, Nate? It's always the question. You know, he was absent for a little while from the StarCraft 2 scene. He played some Dota, but after that he came back when WCS America was announced. He qualified for WCS America almost immediately, but he had a lot of trouble breaking into Premier League. This season, 2014, however, when there is perhaps even a little less hype around SeleCT than there was in 2013 or especially in 2011, as those were his heydays, I guess. It's still very hard to predict what kind of a SeleCT we are going to see. What do we know? Well, we know that SeleCT is fast. You can already see it, guys. He's closing in on 300 APM. Right now, he might just be building SCVs, but trust me, later he's using that APM to drop all over your base.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that, though, because SeleCT also has a very wide array, I'd say, of play styles that he can use. I've seen cheesy SeleCT and macro SeleCT, and then just very normal aggressive play, which is kind of picking up in popularity for the Terran versus Protoss matchup. Meanwhile, puCK opening one gas, seeming normally timed gateway, nothing out of the ordinary. This is one of those maps that we kind of talked about yesterday. Pretty solid for Blink. We saw some attempted Blink play by Minigun in his matches, but puCK, I don't really see him as one of the players that would go for a very Blink heavy style on this map.
I think he's hard to predict as well, though. I had the pleasure of casting quite a few PvDs from puCK over the last few months. I know that he has been running a lot into QXC, and I feel that the majority of those encounters were in favor of QXC. The last time I casted him at an offline tournament was in Louisiana in the end of 2013, where it was looking pretty good for puCK, and I think he had a very realistic shot at perhaps winning the entire tournament. As you know, there were a couple of really good North American players there, but no J-Dongs, you know, no Bombers, nothing too crazy like that. But puCK lost in the semi-final against QXC, and in the final eventually QXC lost against the Apocalypse. Either way, that was a great tournament in Louisiana. But puCK's PvT looked already a little shaky. He played well, but he kept putting himself in good positions. But the late game fights, he messed it up so badly. And a lot of people always think like, you know, you just press Storm and you win the fight. If you play against good Terrans, it's gonna be hard for you to land those good Storms. And above all, if your army is clumped up and those EMPs hit you, you're gonna have a tough time. And a couple of times puCK was in a good position, just messed it up late game. So I'm very curious to see if he has worked on that late game army control in this matchup.
Yeah, I have to say another thing on top of that is puCK is one of those players that when he's in the zone, he plays incredibly well. Certainly, you know, like many other players, especially in the Korean scene, you can kind of compare him as far as the emotions go to players like Hero, where when they're in the zone, they are 100% on the ball. And we're seeing a Stargate play open from puCK, so already the potential for the aggression. We saw this build actually multiple times in yesterday's games as well.
Yep, it's just something that the North American Protoss players seem to enjoy doing. Minigun, big fan of it, and puCK has been doing it quite often as well. puCK's even going to go for the Mothership Core Scout. You just compare them with Liquid Hero. Well, if there's one Protoss player who likes to do this, it has to be Hero. Sometimes for the worse, as quite often his Mothership Core does die. Meanwhile, this Reaper in the main base, I thought might be able to get some work done. But so far, everything is looking standard. However, SeleCT scouting that Stargate with its Reaper must feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, it's nice, and we've seen multiple different types of openings. The setup that SeleCT has, the 3 barracks, just keeping the 3rd one naked for now, just to put out a few more Marines. He already has them split between the main base and the natural. He has 6 Marines waiting in his main mineral line, so this Oracle shouldn't really be able to get too much damage done. It comes down to whether puCK can find an opening, maybe kill an SCV trying to build. I would expect to see a factory, but it actually has not yet been started by SeleCT. He's still on just 1 gas.
Yeah, perhaps, just as you said, trying to get as many Marines out as possible. A little bit worried, doesn't want to take any damage from that Oracle. Perhaps SeleCT has been looking at a couple of those games from Bomber, as Bomber seems to be the biggest fan right now of those 3 Rex openings. It's so funny how some Terrans actually think that just 1 Rex into factory is fine enough to deal with all this crazy stuff, and that it's better to get those winning ones out as soon as possible, and then maybe do something on the other side. Some players are just traditional with their 2 Rexes, 1 Tagline, 1 Reactor. And then you have also a few Terrans out there who love the 3 Rex opening. Well, did SeleCT shoot his own SCV there? Kind of looked like it, right?
The casualty of war, as it were.
Friendly fire, man. It happens. I thought Marines always hit their target, though.
Well, if you misclick on the wrong target, they'll kill anything, man.
How sick would it be if Marines actually can't clump off, because otherwise they would shoot each other in the back. I do not think that Terran would ever win a game.
The most interesting lore question: the giant ball of Marines and no one in the front gets shot. puCK's moving into double forge after this Oracle play, and the Zealot actually kills this Reaper. But this actually makes me think about the games that we saw from Minigun opening this Oracle style. We called Minigun a bit greedy, opening for like a fast 3rd Nexus after the Oracle play. But I almost feel like there's a similar level of greed in heading for double forge with this robotics facility.
To some degree it is, but I also feel that it's always a lot easier for you to defend 2 bases than it is against 3. Yes, this is still very greedy, especially greedy if he also wants to drop a Robo Bay for Colossus, because you know he must know that SeleCT is going to produce a lot of units from these 3 Rexes. Right now, we can see these units march across the map. 6 Marauders and 22 Marines. You know, Nate, you might think that Photon Overcharge is really good, and it is, but I'm not sure if it's that good. There is almost no DPS in this Protoss army. These Oracles, they just won't be able to get a whole lot done because there is a missile turret there. Are they annoying? Yes. Will they slow things down? Yes. Is it going to be an answer to this push from SeleCT? I'm really not sure.
Yeah, and you know, the other problem with this is puCK's late game tech is also slowed down. Look, when you look at it, he needs to get Twilight Council even to finish those upgrades. SeleCT just stems right in. A couple of those force fields do hit, and experience a little intermittent delay, it seems. The Photon Overcharge with those force fields seems to be at least enough to push this push back for now, but there's a huge reinforcement wave coming as well.
Yeah, and he baited out all the force fields. These Oracles are still doing work over here. I felt that SeleCT perhaps went a little too early there. He lost a few too many units, but this is still going to be really hard to deal with. If I was puCK even force fielding the ramp, he's like, you know what, you might kill these units over here on the low ground, but I don't want you in my main. You're going to have to fight in range of Photon Overcharge. And he's actually doing a pretty good job. How many, he didn't lose that many probes there.
Yeah, it looked for a second there. He pulled the probes just to tank a few shots, but I like the point you bring up, defending the main base, keeping him from running in there. Yep. There's a couple of exposed tech structures with very few pylons, namely the 2 forges and a handful of gateways. So puCK managing to even get the Twilight Council out amidst all of this, will be able to get his +2/2 at a reasonable time, and he still has these Oracles to be a pain, looking for anywhere that they can deal damage. They delayed the 4th and 5th racks quite significantly.
And those Oracles have been a pain. There is a 3rd command center almost up for SeleCT. I won't say almost up and running, but that would be slightly exaggerated, as it still has to morph into an orbital command as well. However, you know, it's not bad for either side, or you can say that it's kind of even. Because, you know, like, yes, I love the upgrades from puCK. He definitely has a significant upgrade advantage. But 2 base against soon-to-be 3 base Terran. Upgrades are fantastic, but if one time you're out of position or you're just severely outnumbered, then it can still backfire. I would say SeleCT has the economic game going for him right now, as he's even up a worker and soon up a base, while puCK has the tech game going for him.
Yeah, puCK he's just got his first Colossus out now. Colossus range is underway. Not yet started a second Colossus. He's been selecting that robotics facility a few times. Oracles swoop in, try to grab a few SCVs, and not bad. If you can keep the Oracles alive every additional kill, I think they've got almost 14, 15 kills in total between the two of them.
Yeah, very well done by puCK. I was actually about to mention that as well. I was like, hey, big shout out to these Oracles, man. Like, I know how easy it is to lose some of those Oracles. He hasn't lost a single one of them. So that's pretty good. He's on 48 probes. He wants to go up to 3 bases right now. A few of these Marines and Marauders. This is going to be quite a big drop right now with all of these units being... No, just go for it, Select. No, Select, this is your window of opportunity. All of these units are out of position. He doesn't have Blink yet, right? No. There's no need for him to fight in range of these Colossus.
Tries to force a few of these Marines, and I mean, I guess he could be able to depower this Stargate. puCK was able to see this coming in time to lay the Photon Overcharge at the main base so he could keep the army by that third. And SeleCT hasn't really been able to kill too much, just that pylon so far.
I would have really loved to see him just like fly over and then like drop over here in this backside of the base. There is nothing there. Blink wasn't ready yet. Even if Colossus want to walk there, they have to walk over this cliff. It's going to take a little while. I really think that SeleCT could have done quite some damage there with his drop, but he was quite indecisive, and then he even got force fielded from the low ground. That's something that shouldn't really happen. But of course, excellent defense by puCK.
Yeah, and puCK still moving around with these Oracles, is able to confirm the third base placement, but 4 medevacs, well, 1 kind of empty, dropping into the main base. A big assault picks off the cannon. What is here to defend? The Mothership Core is returning. Colossus walking up the ramp, but it looks like SeleCT will be able to grab this Nexus kill, and he can just pick up and move away, and that's a really nice way to abuse the positioning of puCK. He does have Blink now, but it's just a little too late, and SeleCT even dropping once again under the Mothership Core by that third base. There's no probes to kill, but a nice pickup. Once again, the Stalkers, though, will kill one of those fully loaded medevacs.
Yep, good pickup there by puCK as well. Supply is still extremely even. I do love how SeleCT did that. And once more, we can see, yes, it's awesome for puCK that he has those great 2-2 upgrades, but it doesn't mean that he has enough units everywhere to defend against the number game that SeleCT is putting up on him. SeleCT up 17 workers right now must mean that this army is actually quite a bit smaller after he lost his medevac full of units and lost a few units here and there. It's very hard for a Protoss player to be aggressive when you have so little to perhaps defend your main and stuff. But right now, if he would have gone for it immediately, I really think that it would have been so hard for SeleCT to deal with. How are you going to kill all these Zealots without like a crazy amount of goats with 2-2 upgrades and 3 Colossus behind it when you have no Vikings?
Yeah, the +2 attack is just passing that halfway mark for SeleCT, so he is significantly behind in that regard. Putting out 4 Vikings at a time will help with the Colossi. I don't think we actually have that Templar transition even beginning yet. Not in production. He doesn't have it out on the map yet, so there's no potential for Archons or Storm. And these Colossi in the back, he needs to be very careful. I don't think he has the Mothership Core still either, so he can't recall. Yeah,
he just remade it, but it's not out yet. So I'm not sure how this is going to go. SeleCT has to just cherish all of his Vikings like babies. SeleCT is going to run back in. He has to be so careful. Force Shields could land, could zone out so many of these units. Oh, he's going to kill the rocks.
Well, it's going to block some of those units out, and a significant chunk of SeleCT's army is not able to take part in this engagement, caught in that spot at the bottom, and those Zealots really dealing a ton of damage with that upgraded advantage. +2 attack is so close to finishing this army, not able to retreat all the way and will be annihilated. puCK takes a 20 supply advantage, and SeleCT is just running his army to the other side of the map, but where do you go from here?
I have no idea. He somehow has to recollect himself. It's going to be very tough. The Orbital is still alive, but so many SCVs have fallen. Surprisingly, SeleCT is still up in workers. puCK might back off now into Templars. He must know that he slowed the economy down quite a bit. A lot of Zealots are going to town on SCVs over here. So before SeleCT was doing a reasonable job in keeping SCVs alive, right now many of them have fallen.
Yeah, that was a fantastic engagement by puCK, really using the layout of the map to his advantage. The SCVs trying to mineral walk away from these forces, and SeleCT will be able to stabilize his main base reasonably well, but puCK does still have that third intact. SeleCT needs to move the command center back over, and a Dark Shrine as well, so puCK will have even more harassment opportunities available.
Yeah, I still like puCK's position a lot right now. Upgrade shows us 2-0 for SeleCT. He has +1 on the Vikings. Vikings are a little bit exposed. 1 Viking will fall, 2nd Viking is going to fall, 3 Vikings will go down before this battle starts. And how are these Colossus ever going to fall if there are no Vikings?
Yeah, even the SCVs were pulled off to fight the Colossi, destroying them almost instantly. And the medevac count was pretty solid this game, but just not enough to keep these forces alive. puCK takes game number 1 against SeleCT. And that was a pretty back and forth with the way that it was kind of looking. The early pressure from the Oracle, and puCK seemed to be just barely surviving that whole game until he hit that solid 2-2 attack.
I think Brother really loved that game though. Those rocks were deciding over here in this game on Heavy Rain. It was very well done by puCK. I thought he might be able to force without a couple of those units, but instead he just went for the rocks. It's one of those things that sometimes you focus these rocks with like 2 fewer units and it backfires. You have like this great idea on paper and you think like, yeah, I can kill those rocks immediately, and actually then it doesn't work. But because he had these 4 Colossus and he had a lot of Stalkers, it was very easy for him to almost immediately put out enough damage to kill those rocks. And that was a game-winning move. After that, some good force fields, excellent blinks as well, killed off a couple of Vikings here and there. Just a good game by puCK. Definitely a game where SeleCT had an opportunity to do better, and I felt if that wouldn't have happened, it would have been quite even.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many times where I think we were both kind of a little worried for puCK. SeleCT stimming a bunch of bio units 2 times in a row, really, into that natural, and it seemed like he might get a lot of kills. puCK had to pull probes, but SeleCT just he didn't end up getting anywhere near as much as he invested into those pushes. And when the time came for puCK to make that attack, SeleCT kind of just stretched himself really thin. You know, you snipe a Nexus, that's great, but if you don't kill every single probe, if you don't kill all the tech units that come to defend it, at the end of the day, it's just a Nexus, and puCK has a 3rd base, so he still has somewhere for those probes to go.
Our next map is going to be played on Polar Night. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. puCK looked pretty good in that match, I'd say. Interesting strat as well with the double forge, or the Oracle opening into double forge. It is greedy, but I still think, like, as a Protoss, it's always easy to defend 2 bases. Like, imagine if you would have done the same thing against this build from SeleCT, but then on 3 bases. There's just no way that he can drop similar force fields, that he can somehow keep that base alive. So it was probably a really good call by him to go up to double forge and ignore that 3rd base for a little while.
And with that in mind, also to recall, puCK kept those Oracles alive until the very end of the game. He moved them up towards the top right after the drops came in, but he picked off, 16 or so workers. You slow SeleCT down just a little bit, and as he's throwing away those units, it was funny, we talked about SeleCT having so many workers. He overproduced SCVs just a little bit. And it's just a great tool for scouting for puCK. I think keeping the units alive that you use for the scouting and the harass in the early game is just so effective, and it really forces SeleCT to do things like not move out unless he has missile turrets at each of his bases, not leave his production unwatched, and every area where he tried to build anything, the Oracles were still able to get in.
And it also gave puCK the confidence one moment to walk across the map, because you could really see he's like, I have this army right now that I think is strong enough for me to do some damage on the other side of the map, but I'm still worried about my base. Like, what happens if he drops me immediately while I move out? I cannot reinforce this push. Is this push good enough to win the game? Then he put those 2 Oracles on patrol on the right side of his base.
He couldn't recall either, so that's
exactly.
He punched his ticket. There was no going home.
But those Oracles gave him the confidence of at least seeing a drop coming in time. And he could also use Pulsar Beam, and he could wipe in a few Zealots just a few seconds before units would actually be unloaded in his base. And that makes a lot of difference, because if Zealots are already standing there, they can slice away a lot easier on those Marines and Marauders than if they would be, dropped by a pack of 16, and then your Zealots run in 1 by 1, they die. But if 4 or 5 Zealots run into units that are dropped 1 by 1, it's a lot easier as a Protoss to deal with a drop. Either way, it was a good game. Game number 2 is live. It is going to be played on Polar Night. Nathan, take it away.
All right, well, we are here, and our first player spawning in the south position of Polar Night. The blue Protoss is up 1-0 in this best of 3. Barely holding on with just the right amount of greed, it seems, from Team IVD Gaming. It is puCK. Played quite well. I think did a fantastic job of just barely building enough units to hold on the aggression while still building up for a solid mid-game timing. And his opponent has, I feel, an interesting... I think this is a pretty solid map for the Terran to try to come back on. There's a lot of space for aggressive attacks and drops, but he needs to make it happen in this game, or he will be moved to the loser's match. The red Terran player from Team Dignitas is SeleCT.
Wonder what we're going to see on Polar Night. I think Polar Night is a map that suits SeleCT's style pretty well. It's definitely a map where you can go pretty crazy on the drops if you want to. There's a lot of airspace around the bases. I wouldn't be surprised to see a different style from puCK. I actually think we will, despite this also being a reasonable Oracle map, of course. I wouldn't be surprised to see puCK try his luck with maybe a crazy 2-base, maybe some Blink Stalker action, as Polar Night is. It might not be the best, but it's definitely not the worst map in the book either for Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, that's really the threat of puCK, really. And You know, it kind of brings into thought, I guess, other aspects of studying and preparing for an opponent. One of the things that we kind of mentioned is Select hasn't really been streaming too much recently. Maybe not as easy of an opponent to scout. I know puCK definitely streams quite a bit. Was definitely streaming within the last week or so. So this means it's a bit easier to study. And I guess is it really as big of a deal when you're comfortable with multiple different styles?
I still think it is, because at the end of the day, there is no player out there who's going to stream for 10, 12 hours and do not a single build that he would normally likes to do. It just does not happen. Of course, puCK is not going to do some practice games against the Terran player on his stream. But if you see him do 4 or 5 things, you will see strengths of a Protoss in a certain matchup. You will see weaknesses as well. So despite you may not be 100% sure of okay, is he going to play Oracle into double forge or straight up blink opening or blink defensive, blink aggressive, etc., etc. You do learn a lot from watching your opponent play, and I'm pretty damn sure that Select would do his homework, especially knowing that puCK was going to be his first opponent of the day. There's absolutely no reason to not watch that stream. If he didn't watch it at all, which I would be very surprised by, then he's just underprepared.
Yeah, the Mothership Core comes out, the Zealot being pushed back by that Reaper. And I kind of like this from Select. I feel like as a Terran player, if you can SCV scout and force that Protoss player to build a Zealot before they build the Nexus as the natural without Engineering Bay blocking, it's always a good feeling. You know that the Protoss has to delay their expansion just a little bit. Select with the second barracks. He already has his command center approaching halfway done as the Nexus begins. And he's got to be feeling at least somewhat solid about this opening.
And it's once more going to follow it up with 2 additional Rexes. So again, that 3 Rex opening. And again, the Stargate opening over here for puCK. Well, perhaps don't fix it unless it's broken.
Yeah, I guess it is an interesting decision. I would have expected him to mix it up as well, but it's one of those situations where maybe the map just kind of begs for it. If there's so many more spaces for puCK to move in and harass with the Oracles, and to be fair, if he controls as well as he did last time, it will probably pan out quite well for him. This Reaper's trying to run through. The Probe wants to block it with a pylon,
oh, that's so
and he
well done.
does. That will. Oh, he does barely get vision of the Stargate, though. That is a bit unfortunate for puCK. A cute play, though.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is these are the very small things that I was like, all right, so if you build a pylon over here, you get a gateway over here, it leaves this small little alley, which you can trick a Reaper into it. Imagine if that Stargate would have been one more square to the left, then the Reaper still wouldn't have been able to see it. I really love how Select saw that building as well, and then went back, and then you could see that red circle around the Stargate. So Select does know what he's playing against. Unfortunately for him, he lost the Reaper, but in the previous game, we didn't really highlight it, but he also lost the Reaper rather carelessly, just against a single Zealot that was just slicing away at it.
Yeah, a little bit sloppy, but if you get the information, that's really the most important part. And now Select knows, okay, leave 6 Marines at each base to hold off the Oracle. And once again, it's a situation of how well can puCK control this Oracle? Can puCK deal any damage despite there being these forces? We can see them set up in that mineral line. And the way that Select plays this out, one of the strengths, I feel, of this 3 barracks style that a lot of Terran players are starting to adapt more and more is you not only just have a good mineral setup, but you don't have to worry about the investment into making those Marines. You have just 1 gas mining, so you have resources. It's easier to produce all the Marines off 3 barracks while still avoiding supply blocks at the same time. And we can see he's actually getting his combat shield as well before starting a factory, so we might see again that early aggressive push when both upgrades complete.
Yeah, Select had a different build a while ago, now that I remember it, that Team Liquid wrote a small article about his 9 minutes something seconds medevac Marines with stim drop, which is pretty scary. Of course, when you research combat shield before a factory, that's going to be all a little bit later. What's also interesting, by the way, while these Oracles are still doing work, they take damage, but they won't die, was that puCK flew in, and instead of focusing SCVs, he went for a mule. Unfortunately for him, he focused a mule that was going to expire in the next 10 seconds. But that's kind of interesting.
And actually, what was also interesting is when that supply depot was delayed just a little bit, Select forced into a very small supply block. But that's the strength of the Oracle on this map. They can run around the entirety of the main base, and puCK moves forward just a little bit. He should see these units moving out. Select is approaching his base. Stim has done that combat shield upgrade we were discussing. That's a complete, but this is the threat of moving out without the missile turret already in place. puCK is going to town on this mineral line. 2 Oracles kill this faster than, I don't know, maybe about the same pace as some Widow Mines and a probe line, but Photon Overcharge is deployed, and puCK says, yeah, just try it. He's pretty much completely cleaned up this main base mineral line. 20 SCVs. killed.
Wow, a flawless game so far for puCK. He hasn't lost a single unit yet. He might lose a few of them here. Mothership Core will fall immediately. There's quite a bit of DPS in his army, but with those 3 sentries, I just do not think that this is enough for SeleCT. Maybe he can do it again when Photon Overcharge runs out, but it's going to be very hard though.
Yeah, I'm wondering actually to see when the Photon Overcharge ends. It looked like puCK was trying to spend the energy on the Mothership Core right before it died. It seemed that he was very close to having enough for another. So this could still go on for a little bit longer. If he got the second one, I think he might have gotten it. I don't know exactly when he placed the first one.
No, it's expired already. So, but I still think this is enough gateway units, like 1 or 2 reasonable force fields. Oh, Oracle is going to live.
Oh wow, the SCVs actually, puCK sees them coming with his Oracles. Is SeleCT just going to try to break this with everything he's got left?
That's really awkward.
And it is a little awkward. He does have those force fields available, and he has an Immortal as well, so even the handful of Marauders will take a lot of damage from this. The next Mothership Core is here. He's brought the Oracles back home to help fight this. They're the force fields, locking that bio in just like you said, and, well, they are clumped up quite well. The Oracles come in, add in that extra damage, and SeleCT's army completely pulverized puCK, doubling the supply of our Terran player.
Has lost only 6 units throughout this entire game. Has killed 58 units of a Terran player. Right now he has Blink and Colossus on the way. Poor SeleCT. I do feel this would have been a completely different game if that mission turret would have just been up. Then sure, he might still lose some Marines, but if he trades those Marines for like a Mothership Core and 2-3 sentries, maybe a few probes, it wouldn't have been all that bad. Right now it's an absolute disaster for him.
Yeah, his starport is not even halfway done. The Oracles swoop in once more in. Well, puCK, he finally loses an Oracle in this best of 3, 12 minutes into our second game, but the one that is alive, so you see the 20 kills, the remnants of the damage it's done. So the medevacs are just about to begin as the reactor completes. This is a really tough position to be in for SeleCT. He's moving up to 5 barracks. He's trying to follow through with his build order, but he's just playing from a really far behind position.
I really did not understand like that second SCV pool. I mean, like that second attack with a few SCVs. That wasn't enough SCVs to be completely overwhelming, but it was enough SCVs to hurt his economy. That was already hurting. Yeah. I guess maybe he just magically hoped that those few SCVs would be good enough to soak up some damage from the Zealots or some force fields. I don't know. It's very hard to sometimes place yourself in the mind of the player, but that backfired quite badly for SeleCT.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes as a player, when you're being hit with some sort of early harass, you kind of hope sometimes, does catch the Oracles, so that's a little bit of a break, but you kind of hope sometimes that your opponent will invest more attention into these types of attacks than they really need to, and they maybe slip up on their macro, but puCK has not done that, and these Zealots barely held off the SCVs pulled just in the nick of time. And, well, the bunker at least is alive for now. But I think this third base positioning from puCK is very difficult to attack once he breaks these rocks down, which he has. And this is a very safe decision by puCK.
It's not just difficult to attack, it's also difficult to scout. If I was SeleCT, oops, sorry for that, guys. Oh, man. If Adabisi is watching right now, he's going to make fun of me so much for that. You know, if I was SeleCT and I would think about the state of this game, you know that you're behind. So he also knows puCK is a good player. There's no need for puCK to go up to 3 bases in a risky way, because then he just allows SeleCT to maybe drop him somewhere where he's out of position. So there's absolutely no need for that. Normally as a Protoss, when you're this far ahead, you stay on 2 bases for a while. You just get everything on 2 bases and then you go up to 3 bases, because there's no need for you. You don't have to cut any corners. After that start, you're immensely far ahead. So I do not think that SeleCT is expecting. Is that a real Void Ray?
He built a real Void Ray. The anti-drop Void. When you're ahead, build Void Rays to stop medevac drops. And one does unload in the main base, gets a Stalker, but will be able to clean up. But seems to be the rest of this is Marauders, though. They do deal the damage quite quickly to the Stalkers. I feel like that the Void Rays is kind of chilling there, but this Bioforce shouldn't do too much damage. At the same time, puCK assailing the natural expansion. SeleCT has 4 bunkers, all SCVs set to repair. He's actually chewing through these Zealots. One of the bunkers does fall. The second one is getting quite low. Those Vikings are nowhere in position to help deal with these Colossi, though.
Yeah, this is extremely hard for SeleCT. He just doesn't have that much firepower, even though he does hold on there and, like, once again, I guess, loses a handful of SCVs. It's 65 workers right now. Against 53 or something, 43 even, sorry. So puCK is so far ahead. SeleCT is still completely unaware of this third base. He hasn't even really scouted this one for a long time either, so he might think there is one right now. Maybe he knows that the one in the back will be up. It just doesn't really matter. puCK was so far ahead after that start. He could have won this game in so many different ways. He doesn't have a whole lot of zealots here to buffer, so he has to be careful because those marauders do, you know, go through those stalkers quite quickly. But there's just so much Protoss.
Yeah, the last bunker is shattered, and the SCVs will try to go around. He lifts the command center to get around the force fields, but that does not seem to be enough. The Vikings trickling out, being sniped by these stalkers is not enough. GG, puCK takes a 2-0 win over SeleCT.
Yeah, good best of 3 there by puCK. I felt in the first game SeleCT played quite well. It was just those rocks that completely changed the, you know, that state of the game. I felt it was quite even. SeleCT with more units in general and a much better economy. puCK with some better upgrades. But I felt perhaps that, you know, mentally broke SeleCT a little bit, because in game 2, you know, there's such a big risk to move out against 2 oracles when your missile turret is not ready yet. You said it, and that is exactly what happened. And yeah, that pretty much sums up this game. Then that second SCV pool, we already spoke a little bit about it, or the second attack with the few SCVs. That's the second time I make that mistake. Just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe he thought like he just used like his force fields before. He will not have force fields anymore, but it took quite a while like before those SCVs arrived and he went in again. You know that your opponent has the chance to maybe make a few more sentries or wipe in a few extra gateway units. Yeah, if you lose 25 workers as a Terran in this matchup, that early in the game, it's very hard to come back.
It's a tough feeling, and I feel like it was one of those situations where SeleCT said, okay, well, there's no way he's going to come in this very small window where I start the turret as my army leaves. But that's one of the reasons why you do a build that has you on 1 gas for so long. If you want to push out early, you need to get the engineering bay up a little bit faster. It's a difficult compromise because you want to get on the map and be aggressive, since you know that the Oracle means there's not much to defend at home. But that's the risk you take. Those 2 oracles come in and they kill all your SCVs.
Well, they killed a whole lot of SCVs, which does mean that we are going to embrace ourselves for another PvP, guys. If you have watched the GSL yesterday, you might think like, oh, I've had more than enough of PvP. However, this is going to be an extremely fun matchup as well. puCK and MaxZ, they got quite a bit of history against each other as they went 1-2 and 2-1 once upon a time in WCS America. Back then, puCK won the first series, but he lost the one that mattered. You know, puCK has already twice been just 1 map win away from playing WCS America, and twice he has won like the first series, or at least one time he has won the first series. The other time I do not think he did, but the first time he won that first series against MaxZ, then he lost the winners match, and then eventually he lost the deciding match. Will this be the day that puCK for the first time in his career is going to make it to WCS America round of 16, or will MaxZ do it 3 times in a row? We'll find out after this next commercial break.